distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me extend a warm welcome to each one of you to the Indian Consulate. This is the fourth time we are hosting this event. This has kind of become an annual feature, and we truly feel honored to host India Day event along with ORF. We don't deal with multilateral issues. We don't deal with SDG or United Nations related issues. We deal with India-US bilateral issues. So it would be rather me and my colleagues would be enjoying and learning from the conversation that would happen here today. We also take benefit of this week, the high-level meeting at the UN, the Climate Week, and we host series of events. This week we are hosting 11 events in this consulate. Last evening, we held something called on the title of Energy Security in a Shifting Global Landscape. And we had the Commerce and Industry Minister of India. We had the Petroleum Secretary, who happens to be the head of the Global Biofuel Alliance, and many other experts coming and speaking here. I found one presentation particularly interesting. A gentleman called Mark Gallogly. He's an investor in India, but he also happens to be the chairman of Columbia Climate School. So he said something very interesting, and the presentation was reflective of that. He said, India has found solutions, strategic solutions to global challenges. He kind of narrated about what we have done in India and how those are useful for the global South. And since the topic today is on global South, I thought I should mention about that, because generally you receive such compliments, such acknowledgements in the global South. You don't hear it from in New York City. And I think the UN representative to India, he was there yesterday during that presentation. So I found that very interesting, and I have served most of my diplomatic career in the global South. The last assignment was as ambassador in Tanzania and permanent representative to East African community. And I would say that India has kind of walked the talk when it comes to cooperation with the global South, providing solutions to many challenges that the global South face. And in a way, I have seen, I have a better understanding of the solutions that the global South need and the solutions that they don't need. In fact, I remember a minister in Tanzania would say that, the solutions very often we receive are worse than the problems. And an industrialist the Tanzanian industrialist who has a cashew processing plant would very often narrate this story that how 40 years back, they got a World Bank funded project to have cashew processing machines. And of course, those machines were not customized to the quality of cashew they would produce. And it ended up in a situation that the processed cashew would fetch lower price than the raw cashew. So that's the example of solution being worse than the problem. But India, of course, like I said, has been working in the global South. During my 2 years in Tanzania, I can give one sample example that we are spending $1 billion to provide potable drinking water to all urban centers of Tanzania. So if you want to see an internationalized version of Jal Jeevan Mission, you should see that in Tanzania. We are providing about 1,100 scholarships and capacity building trainings every year to different verticals, from students to government servants to defense forces in Tanzania. We, of course, have set up the supercomputing facilities in the country. We have been providing telemedicine, teleeducation, besides setting up the first IIT outside in Tanzania. But Tanzania is, like I said, a case study. You would find the same example in Uganda. You would find same thing in Malawi. You go to Oceania. You go to to the other parts of Latin America. You would find similar stories of Indian development cooperation. And during the Voice of Global South experiment, the video conferences that we used to have during COVID time, I remember about 125 countries' representatives would be talking about how they find Indian affordable healthcare, Indian education, Indian clean fuel solutions, and the DPI kind of models that they can replicate in their countries. And of course, people would very often ask if we could share that DPI, and now India is sharing that with so many countries. And I think India has not been alone in providing solution from global South. I also saw M-Pesa coming out of Kenya and providing a solution to many other countries there. So I would say that the discussions that you are going to have today, I'm sure would be useful in that context. Yesterday, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, he hosted a high-level meeting of like-minded global South countries in New York City, and he pointed out to the proliferation of concerns and multiplicity of risks for the global South, and suggested kind of strengthening the consultations among ourselves and to bring to the table specific strengths and experiences of achievements that we may have developed in different parts of the global South. Of course, he pointed to the vaccines, digital capability, education, agro practices, and small and medium enterprise culture. So I'm sure while India has been doing a lot, there are other countries in global South who are providing equally good solutions. You mentioned about a different world, the challenges that we are facing. I think this can be one among the solutions, the cooperation between the global South. We are also now, today, one of the topic I saw, one of the theme is on artificial intelligence. I'm sure that is also going to be very useful. With that, let me welcome once again to all the participants here. And like I said, me and my colleagues would be really, really enjoying the conversation here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shub. Of course, now I can't do anything but attempt a bit of Hindi. On behalf of the United Nations family in India, it's a very great pleasure, actually, to say Aap sabhi ko UN Parivar ki taraf se mera namaskar. For those in the audience not speaking Hindi, it's a warm welcome, a warm namaskar on behalf of the UN family in India. It's a great honor to be able to join the Honorable Consul General here, to join good friend Samir, Saran, and Vanita with the with the Reliance Foundation and with the ORF. This is now the fourth year, I think, of this partnership, which has really been fantastic. And I think the UN in India has really been proud and privileged to be a part of this collaboration, including the report launch that we just concluded now. I think to echo, and of course, Undersecretary General Amandeep Gill, to echo the words of USG Gill and of the Consul General, I think that it goes without saying that this is a year of milestones. 2025, it's the 80th anniversary of the United Nations founding. I mean, the concept of multilateralism as we know it, communities and countries coming together to create collective solutions to common challenges. It's the 10th anniversary of the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement, putting specific numbers and targets on the vision that we have as a global community. And yet, at the same time, we see that it is, in a way, a milestone, a sad milestone of compounding crises. The climate is boiling, conflicts abound. 2/3 of the Sustainable Development Goals are off track, as we know, and Paris is as well. So just at the very moment when we need more togetherness, we are unfortunately witnessing some moving further apart. And I would argue, in a way, we've seen this movie before a little bit. One doesn't wish to delve into history, look at the interwar years, and sort of relive why it is that we even created this concept of multilateralism, of the United Nations, of working together, and why some, such as Madeleine Albright, have said, if we didn't have it, we would need to reinvent it for all its imperfections. And so that's why I think, actually, though, today strikes very much a note of optimism and of hope. The series of fantastic conversations and speakers that we have lined up, and again, thanks to the partners, to ORF and Reliance Foundation and the Consul General for that. I would focus on 2 points. Again, USG Gill mentioned quite a number. But first is how the landscape has changed. That is the rise of the Global South. That is that the geopolitical landscape, the economic and social landscape is completely different from when, for example, the United Nations was founded 80 years ago. Now we see that actually something like 80% of economic growth is coming from the Global South. And as we've heard already, and we'll hear more today, the Global South is the engine now of innovation. It is the engine of demographic dividends, of incredible youth populations that will be driving what we look forward to in the coming years. So that's one. Second is, from my view, we're talking about, this is the 30,000-foot view, but from my view on the ground in Delhi, and having the great privilege to travel across India, I see India's incredibly important leadership role, which has been important for a long time, civilizationally for thousands of years. But now, perhaps, now definitely more than ever, India's role in both championing the Global South, being a voice for the Global South, and in demonstrating and sharing India's own development solutions, which have delivered such incredible impact at such amazing scale, providing those solutions to the Global South, and not only, actually, to everybody, as USG Gill was mentioning, especially in the tech sector. So the three sessions that are being presented today, really are going to be cutting across these, providing reasons for hope and inspiration. In India, if we look at the SDGs, we look at SDG localization, India being the very first country to create a subnational SDG index, all the way down to district and block levels. And there we've seen tremendous progress in terms of achievement across the country. Multidimensional poverty, we've seen hundreds of millions of people lifted out of multidimensional poverty on the backs of an array of different major mission mode programs, oftentimes rights-based programs. Secondly, when we look at the digital sphere, India's incredible digital public infrastructure, which is a completely different model towards laying the tracks in a completely democratic and accessible way to all citizens across, the rural areas and lower income strata, through JAM Trinity, through the UPI payment models, where I think, if I'm not mistaken, 40% of global digital payments are made now in India, if not more. And that innovation ecosystem, which is so thriving. Amandeep mentioned Yuva Shakti. And I'm always saying, well, okay, but don't forget about those of us, Jo Dil Se Young Hai. It's a partnership, right? But absolutely, India has the greatest youth generation in history. No country has ever had so many young minds to tap for solutions ever before. And then finally, Nari Shakti, women-led development, gender equality. This is, again, another area where India is moving forward with so many important examples. Already at the very local level, essentially half of elected representatives are women. The parliament now has passed recently a new bill which will, in the near future, reserve at least 1/3 of seats in parliament, in the lower house of parliament, and in all state legislative assemblies for women, to ensure women's voice at the highest level of decision making. And finally, Women, Peace and Security, Security Council 1326. India really has been the leader in bringing women into the peacekeeping movement, the very first women-led peacekeeping units and police units across the board. So to conclude, under the mantra of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, this actually is the moment when we need India's leadership and we need the Global South moving forward as it is, taking those seats rightfully that are being vacated. This is what gives us hope for the SDGs, hope for 2030. In India, we speak about 2047, Viksit Bharat, developed India at the 100th anniversary. So thank you so much, everybody. And really, truly, this is a wonderful partnership. I'd like to thank again all of those who have made this possible, and looking forward to the discussions today. Aaj ki charcha achi rahe. Bahut dhanyavad.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Reliance Foundation, I'm really pleased to welcome you all to this 4th edition of the India Day at UNGA. Together with the Observer Research Foundation and UN India, it's our honor to bring India to the world through this India Day event in New York, and to bring all of you together to discuss, learn from each other, and exchange knowledge on the way forward. This year marks 10 years since the adoption of the SDGs, a milestone that is both a time to celebrate successes, but also to galvanize renewed commitment towards inclusive, sustainable development in the next 5 years. This year, as Shombi was talking about, India has conducted its third voluntary national review of its progress in meeting the SDGs. And this has really showcased India's role as a global actor in sustainable development, committed to advancing the SDGs through innovative policies, grassroots initiatives, and scalable technologies. India's journey towards achieving the SDGs also reflects the spirit of innovation, inclusivity, and innovation that India brings to the world. India's experiences and learnings offer pathways of ideas, action, and scale that can inspire the Global South and indeed the wider global community. And that's what we hope to discuss today. We developed the publication that you've all got copies of, Global Goals and Indian Vision, The Last Mile to 2030. This is a third volume in our series between Reliance Foundation, Observer Research Foundation, and the UN India, where we have been looking at the pathways towards achieving the SDGs. And in this edition, what we're looking at is shining a light on some of the transformative solutions that are rooted in India's development journey, sharing insights that we hope will help drive progress on India's development journey, as well as the wider Global South, as India looks towards achieving the SDGs, but also the historic vision of Viksit Bharat by 2047. The book reviews India's approach over the last decade and unpacks the 3 levers of progress, or 3 Ps: people, partnerships, and platforms that have all been crucial to India's accelerated progress, and showcases the pathways to implementing new strategies and to forge deeper partnerships to tackle the challenges of the future. These are some of the themes that we're hoping to delve deeper on in the discussions today through the various panels that we have, looking at what it will take to get us to 2030, what will be the key role of technology and women's empowerment in enabling us to reach those goals. The publication also highlights how philanthropy, the private sector, and public sector can work together to achieve ensuring that nobody is left behind. And that is also something that, together we would like to see more of in the future. At Reliance Foundation, our commitment to strengthening India's development is inspired by Reliance's vision of We Care, an enduring belief in the inclusive and compassionate future for India and the world. In the last decade and a half, Reliance Foundation has worked across 91,500 villages in India to touch the lives of over 87 million people in meaningful and measurable ways. As we look ahead, our chairperson, Mrs. Anita Ambani's vision for Reliance Foundation is to amplify that impact 5-fold by 2035. Collaborative work and strong partnerships are going to be critical in achieving this ambitious goal. And we aim to spread hope and opportunity in our cities, in the remotest towns and villages of India, with a strong focus on empowering women, children, and youth, and leveraging the power of technology to reach the last mile. We look forward to continuing to work together with partners and communities and all of you to develop innovations to advance development in India and to share India's learnings with the world and together shape solutions that can uplift lives everywhere. And we look forward to the discussions today. Thank you.